Pepsi Man was an endless running game released on March 4th, 1999 for the PlayStation in Japan. Although it never quite made it to the West, it does seem to have its fans, me being one of them, and today we are going to take a look at some of the models and levels from the Pepsi Man game. So first, of course, we got to start off with Pepsi Man himself. This model sits at 562 tries and 1,686 edges, so far less than we're used to. Taking a look at this model, you can tell that it's very chunky, as it should be for a PlayStation model. Since the games back in the day couldn't really be too high in graphics or use too much RAM, they really had to make sure that these models were small but robust. I mean, as you take a look at him, he does look like a human, there's no doubt about that, but he does have very sharp arms and legs, those shovel-like feet too, and he has those classic shovel hands that you'd see in a normal early video game character model. And I mean, even if you take a look at some of the promotional art that was released for Pepsi Man, you can see how well polished he should be looking normally. But with the limitations of this console, we weren't going to be able to get that Pepsi Man. And thank God in some aspects, because as you can see, Pepsi Man was sometimes drawn with this burping mouth, this wide open YouTuber thumbnail burping mouth that's kind of uncomfortable to look at, especially since this character does not have a nose or eyes. As we can see in his model, he's just got a full gray Slenderman-like head, but is a lot more of a joyous character than Slenderman ever was. And split diagonally down the middle, half of his chest remains gray and the other half turns into a blue. We've also got this super low quality Pepsi logo on his chest too. I can't imagine it takes more than 100 pixels to make this logo, but who knows, I'm not an expert. What's interesting though is that the decals on his chest and on his arms do outline quite a little bit of muscle. I mean, just look at his abs here, you can see that he's ripped. As we take a close look at the legs too, you can kind of see where the model kind of clips into itself, as these models really wouldn't be able to be mapped together or anything. You have to kind of make them in separate chunks. But it's always fun to take a close look and see just how they went about it with this model specifically. His feet too are very shovel-like and sharp, a pair of feet that you definitely wouldn't want to get kicked with, that's to be sure of. And before we take a look at some levels too, I just wanted to take a quick look at this Pepsi vending machine. At the end of every level, Pepsi Man reaches a Pepsi machine where he takes a Pepsi can out, takes a drink, and you get your stats for how well you did in that level. So let's take a look at that model first. What's interesting about this model is that it's actually very simple in polys. I didn't even pull up the count here because you can almost count it visually here. This model is basically just a rectangle with a very low poly Pepsi side with Pepsi decals and the sort. And obviously this does look very similar to the 1999 set of Pepsi vending machines that you might see at a store and stuff like that. And they definitely did use their own custom photos for the game to make this machine, but obviously the vibe is very similar. As you can see, these other Pepsi machines look very similar in the style to the 1999 Pepsi machine you see here. And what's also interesting is you can see this tiny little Pepsi can in Pepsi Man's hand that he drinks at the end of every level, which is also very low poly and very low res. You can barely make out the Pepsi logo and the Pepsi per selection, which is funny to see. As you can see here on the drink select, there's really not any detail done for it. It's maximum of 10 pixels. You can barely make out the Pepsi logo and any other information on it, but it is a funny model. Now we can move on to level 1, scene 1. We got quite a bit of stuff to take a look at here. This level is very, very nostalgic. I mean, just taking a look at him running down this neighborhood takes me back to a time when I was a kid. But one of the things I want to look at first is these little sewermen obstacles. They're not actually true 3D models in the sense that you might be thinking, but are instead just simple planes. Basically, it's just a plane of a guy sandwiched between two flat sewer grates. Very interesting to see how they went about doing that. As you can see here too, we have a simple mailbox that once you go to the back of actually is not modeled at all. An interesting trick to save on the polys that are not necessary and keep the game running as smoothly as possible. You can see this one guy here, he's got a Pepsi logo on his shirt. It's a little on the nose, but I'll let it slide. And we can take a look at the cars here too, and you can see that the cars are actually pretty well detailed. All four sides of them are modeled, and they're pretty cute classic cars. I mean, even though they don't use many polys at all, you can still see that there was a good amount of detail put in, even for just a simple thing that you'd pass by once and never really see again. However, the trees are just 2D planes and not 3D models whatsoever. They don't even have the Minecraft XY sort of crisscross pattern. It is literally just one flat plane. But these were kind of programmed to follow the camera wherever you went, so it really wouldn't matter. Taking a look at some of the houses too, we can see they did the same technique that the mailbox did. They didn't include anything in the back. In some cases, some have a little extra piece of roof just so that if you were taking a quick peek at the back of the house, you'd be able to see that. But for the most part, it is pretty barren, and most of these houses are honestly just copies of one another. And what's interesting too is you can actually still see some of these items that have kind of been loaded in and kind of not been loaded in as you get to the edge of the map. The way the game renders, it probably renders in the easiest to render items first and then brings in the harder, heavier poly-counted items. So you can see there's a differentiation between a few of the street items, the houses, and the road not being there at all. Now, when you pause the game, you get to see this little Pepsi can that'll spin around and pretty much just waits for you to get back on the game. We can take a look at that model right now, and it's a pretty simple model, as you can see. This model is literally only made up of 238 tries and 714 edges. You can see the Pepsi logo in all its glory. You can see some of the nutritional facts on the back too, although you can't really read anything aside from the Pepsi Cola logo at the top. And they also do include the classic things you'd see on a Pepsi can, like a barcode, recycling instructions, and the sort. What's interesting is if you do look at the text, you can kind of tell that it is Japanese. It sort of is difficult to tell, but if you look really closely and you are also familiar with the Japanese language, you would be able to tell. This is not, however, the same Pepsi can that chases you during the chase scenes. That's a different Pepsi can, and it's not much different, so I'm not going to showcase it and waste more of your time. But it is technically a separate model that uses a similar texture. Next, we have level 1, scene 2. This is more of a skate level, and it does take place more in a city, so we're going to see quite a bit of a different way that they program this level. But before we get into that, I want to look at the skateboard itself. This is a very simple skateboard model. The wheels are literally square, and if you were to ride this, you would surely fall off in an instant. However, the board is colored and themed after Pepsi, obviously. What's interesting, though, about the wheels is, although they do use sort of a squared cube to represent the actual thickness of it, it is a circular texture that they put on the front of it, just in case you were to see the side of the skateboard, which in this case, I guess we are. I also want to take a look, too, at this tram that is unfortunately about to end my run here, as you can see. It is a good model. I mean, honestly, it's very good quality for the amount of limitations this game would have had back in the day. You can see that it's filled with a bunch of shadow people with not a lot of detail on them, nothing that makes them distinct from anyone else. And it almost kind of looks uncanny. I mean, they almost don't look like human at all. It sort of seems out of place in a bright, colorful game like this. There's also this Pepsi truck that they include in the game that you have to watch out for some point in the level. It utilizes a combination of both 2D and 3D textures and planes. As you can see, it has a ginormous Pepsi logo throughout the side of the truck, and on the front and back, you can also see different little circular logos throughout. Some parts of the wheels utilize more of a texture to actually make the wheels circular, as you can see with these back wheels here, but in the front you can see it's more of a chunky sort of octagonal mess. Looking at the exhaust too, you can see that that's also very low poly and textured. Obviously there's not too many nosy people taking a look at the truck's exhaust, so it doesn't really matter. And what's interesting about this level is since you'd only really see these apartment buildings along the side as you run down or skate down the street in this case, there's really nothing on the outside since there's nothing that you'd be able to see on the outside. So you can see it is just a very linear sort of level. And in this case, it loads in only a certain small chunk at a time. So I took this chunk just to, you know, sort of give an example of what this whole level would consist of. Before we move on to level 2, I just want to take a quick look at the starting screen as well. You can see the Pepsi Man logo right here. Now, as you can see when the game starts up, you have Pepsi Man running to the Pepsi Man song right on a road that has no lights or no other surroundings at all, really, until he bumps right into the Pepsi Man logo. As you can see here, this is what he looks like when he's crouched down in his sort of nursing position to try to help himself after being hit in the head, and the flat 2D plane that hosts the Pepsi Man logo. Now we're going to take a quick look at some of level 2, mainly the interesting city part. As you can see in this city, this is not a very handsome part of town. This is more of a apocalyptic sort of area as it's portrayed in the game. You can't really tell with the white background in the model viewer, but in the normal game you would actually have sort of a sunset fallout orange. And as you can see on the streets too, you have people struggling, some homeless people here with signs in their laps. One guy sitting actually in front of a burning car here. But when you get close enough to them, they actually hold up their signs that say, "Give me Pepsi." It's funny to me that the most important thing to them in this moment is actually getting a hold of some Pepsi. Not getting into, you know, a housing unit or getting some actual food, but getting some Pepsi. That is important though. Another thing to look at too is all of these buildings, they're just a bunch of garages. Either storage for automotive or actual shops. Who's to say they have no logos on the front of them, and this is a very dingy, sketchy part of town. Even the trees are a little bit grayed out and not super lustrous as we once saw them in level 1. There is one building that sticks out like a sore thumb though, and that is the Kid Corporation factory. What's weird is underneath the Kid Corporation logo, it says Kindle, Imagine, Develop. It almost sort of reminds me of the Quality Leering Center, just based on the fact that it really doesn't make sense whatsoever. And maybe this joint is Somali owned, who knows? As you can see on the top, it does have 2 water towers, which are very low poly as they always are, and these stands that hold them are just simply transparent planes with some beams on on them. To the left-hand side, we also have a simple bridge that I want to take a quick look at as well. I can't really see in the game if anything rides this bridge. Maybe it's a train, maybe it's not, but who knows? I really hope it's a train. It is a very nice looking bridge, honestly, although it's very simple and is just sort of sitting in the background, something you barely would see as you pass by it. It is nice that they put a little bit of detail into it, at least. As you run down this track too, you can see that we end up in a shipping crate area with a bunch of Pepsi shipping crates. Who's to say why Pepsi's ordering so many shipping crates to the hood? I mean, maybe costs are super low in this area, and that would make sense, but it's a very risky place to have a bunch of Pepsi. As you can see too, just before the cutoff, we have a quick glimpse at the warehouse that you'd walk into. There's other portions of this level too, like this excavator and this bridge that I could have taken a look at, but let's be realistic, they're all pretty simple. If you guys did like this video and you want me to take a look at the other few levels that this game has, let me know in the comments below. I just wanted to make this video as a quick little homage to Pepsi Man without making it too long to bore you guys to death, but if you do think that you'd be interested in seeing more of this Pepsi Man game, then let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in watching more low poly content like this, then hit the subscribe button. But if you honestly don't think you want to watch more of this content, don't worry about it, it's all good. I'm glad you made it this far anyway. But yeah, other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.